this back and forth, they're saying, oh, the TikTok ban is going to come back and bite the United States. Now, we had two pieces. I'm trying to think of it because I have a million drafts going in Substack right now. The newsletter. So this is where you need to like sign up for this and subscribe because you get all kinds of really good stuff with us. But I looked at it a couple of different ways. Like first off, we had the piece, the discussion that we had with Brendan Carr, the FCC chair, up on not just YouTube, but we also had a piece up on Substack about it. But in addition, I also was kind of diving into a little bit of, the good and the bad, because all of these things can exist simultaneously. All of these things. And these things are the fact that ByteDance is the biggest, that's TikTok's parent company. I explained to you yesterday that back in 2021, they purchased the so-called golden share, so they can outvote every other shareholder. That's theirs. That's true. It's also true that TikTok has been collecting data and that they send it to Beijing and they collect information on all of you. They send it to Beijing. We have no idea what they do with it. And it doesn't necessarily look on the up and up, if we're being honest about it, right? It doesn't. That's also true. It's also true that, this idea that it's a free speech issue, it's not really a free speech issue. It really isn't. It's not a free speech issue. And I say it's not a free speech issue because it's more of an issue of what they're doing with your information, what they're doing with your free speech. I mean, if anything, they're really using your free speech against you. And I wrote about this in front of this, and I keep coming back to this point, comparing illicit conduct to free speech, the latter, which is not even contested in the version of the bill I read. And if you subscribe on Substack, I sent that to you. So you have the link to the actual bill that, I'm going to pull this up. You have the link to the actual bill, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. So if you're a subscriber, you can actually go, you can read it. And read the bill for yourself, which I highly suggest that you do. I know it's not the funnest beach read, but I do suggest that you actually go and read this stuff because they do define foreign adversary. Now, when I asked Brendan Carr about that, I was a little questionable about it. I'm like, is it really? Now, the reason why people are getting upset about that phrase in the bill is because the bill doesn't list it. The bill doesn't list it. It is it's already an existing federal statute that defines, so it's a legally defined term already. So within the bill, it says foreign adversary, which is legally defined elsewhere in federal law. So they don't leave it open to interpretation. And the foreign adversary is very specifically defined as one of four things: Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. So those concerns can be put to rest. And there are some portions of the bill that are a little vague. I mean, I think that you should just come out and be like, you specifically, TikTok. I mean, just come right out and name it. But here's the big issue. Here's the big issue. I do not want to fall into the trap of the Chinese Communist Party weaponizing the patriotism of everyday Americans as a way to empower their continued surveillance. Does that make sense? Because it is surveillance. It's espionage. I don't want them to use our patriotism and it's weird because this is a country that, the parent company is in a country that doesn't even acknowledge or recognize, etc., free speech. It's kind of funny. But I don't want to fall into that trap that we're going to allow them to weaponize this for us, for their continued surveillance. So those are three things that I think are incredibly important with all of this, and that I hope like I said, if you get the newsletter, you can read the bill, you can see everything that's in there. It's very important. But I think that they're laying the bait because, like I've said, it's very odd to see the left and the right divided against themselves. And it's very odd to see, members of the Democrat Party agreeing with certain members of the Republican Party on this stuff. It's weird. And I just don't accept that the bill is an affront to free speech. I don't think that behavior that is considered espionage is protected as free speech. And speech isn't even the issue that the bill has a concern with. It doesn't even address that. It looks at data mining and surveillance. Now, the extent of the powers that are held by the chief executive, as I explained yesterday, and the reason I'm touching on this again is because it's fighting now in the Senate. They're fighting over it in the Senate. The authority isn't verbatim extended to the office of the executive with this. However, was it really extended to the office of the executive and their governing agencies under the Patriot Act? Or anything else? I mean, you can't blame millions of Americans for legitimate concerns because they watched this play out in front of themselves literally over the past decade. You can't blame them. I mean, they've watched the government shape through abuse power that it didn't have into one that it did, and they wielded it against political dissenters. You can't blame Americans for this. And like I said, their sudden interest in free speech is hysterical. It's a freedom foreign to those living in the country of its parent company. So don't get baited into defending the continuation of communist surveillance on private Americans by allowing them to weaponize your patriotism to their own benefit. So all of these things can be true. This is a very tricky, nuanced issue. And not everything is all good and not everything is all bad. That's why a lot of caution is advisable.